Hey everybody, I'm Michael.
And I'm Max.
And remember to go follow us on Instagram at OnlyAnniePod.
And on YouTube, the world's only Animorphs podcast. That way you can check out all of our live streams, like the one we did for Megamorphs.
You can also listen to this podcast on Spotify or iTunes or anywhere you find podcasts. So enjoy this episode on Book 8. I like how we started out watching the clip from the Animorphs show where Axe acquires their bodies. And this is the thing that bothers me the most about the TV show depicting Andalites. As you said, the eyes are a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't like how furry they made them. I don't think they're actually that furry.
No, yeah, it's way too matted to... you look at this picture that he's got here, and it's so obviously shorter than, there was no mane-ish neck hair on them. They went too horse-like in that respect, I think.
They did go to horse-like. I think their fur is shorter than what was depicted in the...
much more like a deer, which is why that's... Axe does the same thing that I think my girlfriend is guilty of doing sometimes, too. She's like, she knows what differences she's looking at, and knows what kind of features and stuff she uses to define the visual of a person. But then I'll look at somebody and I use different features to define the visual of a person, what similarities they might share with somebody. So I'll see somebody and they've got a similar overall facial structure, similar color tones going around their hair. They might not have the same nose or the same mouth or the same cheek or jawline or something like that. But there's 3 or 4 features that are similar enough that I'm like, oh, yeah, they kind of look similar. And she's like, they look nothing alike. And Axe does the same thing here. He's like, he doesn't understand the deer description, why he gets compared to a deer. And it's like, that's why, because you've got a similar body in the sense that you've got the 4 legs like a deer. You've got the torso similar enough to a deer's torso, but your fur is also shorter like a deer's, was the impression that I got between the image that they gave us on this book and the descriptions that they've given all the time.
All right, so Book 8, the alien, Axe's technically his first commentary except for Megamorphs, where he did have a few chapters. But I was thinking, is this the first time in the history of Animorphs that we have seen an Andalite depicted in art form on this cover? Because there's no Andalite art in, I don't believe, any of the other books.
No, I think the closest we've come so far, I think maybe in the Megamorphs on the Morphing Cube, there might have been a hand.
I actually have the book right here. Let's take a look. So, check it out. So, they overlook it. On the cover of Megamorphs, it's just the regular Animorphs and not Axe. And then inside...
Nope.
Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Just 5.
So they must have, and we'll talk more about this, on the Megamorphs episode. But
it's his tail. His tail's the additional appendage that's just creeping around.
Yeah,
not Axe's, Jake's.
Yeah, right. That's funny. There's a tail there. But yeah, so I feel like on this cover, it's the first time we actually get to see what an Andalite is, and it never varies too much from this. I think on the cover, the stalk eyes kind of bother me. Of course, we each have the original pressings of the book.
Yes.
Which we like to do as often as
possible. Mine is in much worse condition than yours. My front cover is trying to separate itself.
Well, to be fair, you've had yours since they came out, and I ordered mine from eBay, and so it was probably sitting in some used bookstore for a while. It's in really good shape.
I was going to say, yeah, but
it's barely
but still
read.
Somebody had that copy for the same amount of time.
Do you have the nifty Axe bookmarks?
I do. Remember, I brought the one by the previous episode. I think it was around 2 or 3.
You still use them?
Yeah, actually, I think it's still stuck in the book that I was using it in, and so I couldn't find it. I was looking around. I was like, where did that bookmark go? I was just using a piece of Kleenex.
Were your bookmarks on page 89, right before chapter 12? Can you see the evidence of where they once were? I'm just curious.
Yes.
There you go, 89.
Yes, that's why it naturally wants to open to that section. I'm like, why does chapter 12 feel like almost the center of the... It looks like it's more than the middle of the story, but it feels like the center of the book somehow, and it's because of that bookmark piece.
Do kids read books anymore? Do 12, 13-year-olds read hard copy books anymore?
Some do. A lot don't, because they have access to e-versions, Kindle versions, or LeapPad versions, or whatever they've got.
I'm sure a kid would never appreciate the coolness of having a bookmark in a book.
I love how even Axe takes appreciation for books.
Yeah, in this book.
Yeah.
In this book, we learn a lot. Axe learns a lot about humans, and we learn a lot about Andalites. We find out what a shorm is. We find out what an estreen is. We find out what a nothlit is.
Yes, the nothlit.
Name him, Max. What's a shorm?
A shorm is a best friend. He's my buddy.
Axe, that's Tobias. What's an estreen?
It's a deep friend. It's like
deep friend.
Not just a best friend, but yeah, like a deep friend.
Like some connection, some super interconnection,
Yeah.
which we find out between Axe and Tobias. There certainly is one, but we're kind of seeing that form. We're really cooking now in the series. We're finding out stuff. This book in particular is like a big leap into what we end up finding out. Okay, Max, what is a nothlit?
Nothlit is what poor Tobias is. He is someone who is stuck in their morph.
Stuck forever? We'll find out. Max, what is an estreen? As I quiz Max on Animorphs terms.
Estreen is what Cassie is. She is a person that is adept at morphing. Somebody who makes it look beautiful.
She is good at that. Better than Axe, actually.
Much like my wife. She's an estreen.
Oh, that's so sweet. All right, so what I found in this...
Not that she's not beautiful without the transformation, but she makes the transformation itself also look beautiful.
There you go. You're making my heart warm today, Max. So what's cool about this book, first Animorphs book in the series that has a prologue. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, prologue.
Prologue?
Prologue.
Prologue, right? It's like you would never know how to actually say that word unless you're...
Prologue.
It has a prologue in this. And it's... Okay, so overall... I think that the colors. Tell me if you get what I'm saying with this. I think the colors of the cover, the orange, the blue, pops out. It's new. It's different, and then so is the book.
I've always loved that color combination.
Me too,
that
man.
Orange and blue contrast. They're such perfect opposites on the color wheel. It's great.
And I think that reflects the flavor.
But they're complementary. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that reflects the flavor of the book. It's different. It pops. The Animorphs are on a break now. The book does start with Axe's last moments with Elfinger, where Axe is actually on the dome ship. They make him go to the area because, like, remember the Yerk slugs are hiding on Earth's moon in a crater, and they come out in the blade ship, right? And they're trying to attack the Animorph. So Axe is sent away because he's such a young warrior. He's not even, I guess technically all Andalites are Andalite warriors, but he's still so young that he can't really...
He's an aristh.
An aristh. That's another word. Yeah, I forgot to write that one down. So that's 4 words. Shorm, estreen, nothlit, aristh. Yeah. And I don't think any of those words were in the...
Megamorphs?
Or in any of the series before this.
No, yeah. That's why I could not wait until we got to this book. I didn't know it was this book, but I could not wait until we got to this book. I knew there was eventually going to be one. And it makes sense that it would be the one that he's on the cover of, where we finally figure out their terms for a lot of the things that these people are now.
And this is also kind of the book where things come to... The Animorphs come to terms with
New
Axe.
shit has come to light, man.
Yeah, Big Lebowski reference. I understood that reference.
Yay.
But it's like the way they're looking at him like, all right, we got this alien here, this Andalite. We're sharing everything with him and trying to make him a part of our team, but they're finding out that Axe is still holding back a lot of information. And so this entire book, once again, is about the exchange of information. Now, at the beginning of the book, tell me why Axe went to school. I'm not totally sure. Why did they bring Axe to school?
He wanted to learn. He says, as long as I'm here on this planet, I'm going to learn about this species more in depth.
How many times in your school, in middle school or high school, did a kid just bring another kid and he's like, hey, this is my cousin Philip.
Bro, I was thinking about that the whole scene. I was just
when
like,
does that ever happen?
No. I mean, I don't know how public school works wherever they're at, but we couldn't just like, hey, this is my cousin. He's in town for the week, you know.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That isn't ever something that we did. Let me test something.
If he were in town for the week, great. He stays at your house with his parents that week, you know, or does whatever they're all doing as a family. He doesn't go to school with you. Maybe like a long time ago before we had a formal public schooling system in the U.S. of A., which we know they theoretically are in based off of Rachel's comments from her book, where they're, talking about people being in the White House
Yeah. Plus the malls and stuff. That's a mall. Are malls a thing in other parts of the world?
I mean, I think they are, at least in the UK area, the Eastern European countries, France,
Yeah.
England, Spain.
One thing I liked about this book is how, with Axe's narration, especially towards the beginning, like his little, the writers do little things to make it, kind of poke at the fact that he is an alien and is still getting used to human culture. Like on page 12 when it says, "Okay, let's do this," Jake said, making sounds with his mouth to form words.
Yes,
You know, like super specific things like that.
I love how he's finally starting to pick up on things like inflection and tone. Sarcasm, yeah.
Kind of like body language. Yeah, and we hear in this book how he's getting familiar with like human adrenaline. The only time he shows real emotion in this book, which is a pretty emotional book for Axe, is when he's in human form and can feel that.
Right.
But it's where the Animorphs are on a break now. And if you think about it, that's a very wise decision by KA, because like from book 1 up to Animorphs and now book 8, they've been on the edge of death this entire time.
Megamorphs. She said Animorphs.
Did I say Animorphs?
Yeah.
I meant Megamorphs. Sorry, my brain works some of the time. But in this one, it's like Jake's like, we're not talking about controllers, Yerks or Visser 3. We're taking a break. We fought one battle after another. We destroyed the Kandrona. We beat that Valik monster of theirs, and now we are taking some well-deserved vacation time. So at first the book is like, all right, we're on vacation. Nothing too serious is going to happen here. And it does break from the format a little bit, The beginning of it is all, it gets a little bit serious later on, but at first it's just like they bring X to the movies.
Yeah.
And he freaks out at the movies.
And yeah, that's one of the scenes I remember clearly visualizing as a kid, was this dude just like crawling around on the nastiest floor at a movie theater. And he's even describing, they put something sticky on the floor so you wouldn't slide around, as if it was a measure they preemptively took.
Globules, ools.
Yeah.
I like the one part where he goes up to a girl and tries to take her candy. He goes, I looked up from the floor at the human. Please give me your brown globules, I asked.
See, if I hadn't already read this book and knew that they talked about Raisinets at one point, I wouldn't have guessed those to be Raisinets initially.
What would you have guessed? Milk Duds?
Yes.
Me too.
Exactly.
Me too. I definitely thought it was Milk Duds. Even rereading this, I was like, oh yeah, this is where he picks up the Milk Duds and talks about how good Milk Duds are. And then they say it's Raisinets.
Raisinets, yeah. I definitely called it M&Ms, though. That's just like, that's obvious. Pellets, and they're the same as the, yeah. Come on.
My favorite line in this book, on page 25. I merely wish to enjoy, he says, I merely wish to enjoy the brown globules, I explained to the screaming child. All right.
Side reference, you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows? You really should drink some more water. He thinks it's his little like dry poops, and then he sees him later eating the Raisinets, and he's like commenting to the other vampires, did you see that? He's eating his own dry poops.
Classic comedy. Max, what is your favorite candy to enjoy at the movies? Axe apparently is Raisinets. What's your favorite?
Well, I know we were talking about jujubes on a previous episode, but dots, honestly, were the ones that I tended to try and get whenever I would go to the movies. If I were going to get a candy, It was either dots or Milk Duds, maybe peanut M&Ms.
I can get behind all of those. I would probably rank between those three. I would go Milk Duds, dots. I used to really go crazy for peanut M&Ms. Not so much.
The only thing that trumped any of those was Whoppers, if they had them.
Whoppers, good stuff. Yeah, that was a good one.
I love that crunchy.
And also the movie they went to see was a Star Trek movie.
That was great.
They made direct Star Trek references, which at this
I love
point
how
in
a
time,
Klingon actually exists.
Yeah, he's like, they called it by the wrong name. I want to see Star Trek. I want to see if there was.
It sounded almost like he was insulting the alien in Spanish at first with the name of it. What was the name of that?
Find that.
That alien.
While you find that, I'm gonna see if there actually was a Star Trek movie at this time, or if she just kind of, because it's not the first Star Trek reference.
Onga Cheek. Okay, that's what it was.
So
Onga Cheek.
Klingons are actually Onga Cheeks. Okay, so the Star Trek Voyager series was happening between 95 and 2001, but no movie. So I don't know. Maybe like it's just something that she'd imagined. She kind of pulled it from thin air. Okay, so like you said, he has the
Voyager was a show anyway.
he has the journal entries at the beginning of each one, which kind of reflects what he's doing. Where is the Earth Diary, by the way? Because each quote at the beginning of the chapter says, "From the Earth Diary of Aximili Escarath Isthel." Is that how you pronounce his name?
I said Aximili Esgaruth.
Esgaruth, okay.
I think the first time you said it, you said Esgaroth.
Escarath.
Yeah.
Aximili.
Esgaruth
There's something
or Esgarouth is either one is acceptable in my opinion.
there's something oddly satisfying about Aximili.
Aximili.
It sounds like facsimile.
Yeah, right.
You know, but
Isthil.
Isthel. Yeah.
I wonder if any of that. I wonder.
Max
Is any
Wonders.
of that a family name? Because it wasn't in Elfangor Serenial Shemtul, and apparently he was supposed to be his direct brother.
Yes.
So,
Direct brother.
because like everybody's like a cousin or an uncle or an aunt or whatever.
They are closely connected in the
They
Andalite
don't
world.
necessarily specifically say, I don't think, whether or not they're both male and female. I haven't, other than like
Who, Andalites?
Yeah. Other than like Jake's supposed like recognition of a family,
Yeah.
and just like I'm sure we all just assumed that meant that there was a mother and a
Mother and
father,
father.
and the two brothers at least.
These assumptions are so 90s. Like in this book, when at one point Axe says, people say Rachel is beautiful and that Marco is cute, and I can't see it. But when I'm in my human morph, I do think Rachel is beautiful, but I never think Marco is cute.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like
I saw that.
Axe
I
is
was like,
such a
wow.
cisgendered
Right,
human
yeah.
morph. You know, like. But we do have to address the inconsistency on page 27. I was reading around a little bit on the internet today about this book, and it has been pointed out, but I noticed it independently here, where Tobias is thought speaking to the group, and he says, "Hey, you guys, was the movie that bad?" It was Tobias on patrol far overhead. And here we go. Here's the inconsistency. Axe says no one can answer him. Humans can use thought speech only when they're in a morph. And since I was in a human body, I too was restricted to spoken language. That's inconsistent. That doesn't make sense because Axe is in a morph. And you can thought speak in a morph.
This is normally true. But that falls into the I wonder that I had from an episode or two ago where I was talking specifically about this. If since Axe is in a morph, could he technically still thought speak? But it appears that no, since he was, this is them basically clearly clearing that up, like clearly clearing. That was very redundant. Obviously clearing that up, saying, hey, no, since he's in a body that uses this as communication and doesn't otherwise have the capability, I guess, that doesn't make sense that this one sentient species would not be capable of thought speak, whereas any of the other semi-sentient species that they're morphing from the same planet somehow would be capable of it.
And no spoilers, but we may see a correction in a few books, or at least a different take on that.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to see. We're going to
We'll
see. We're going to see what happens there. We'll definitely mention it
We
here.
haven't read that far. Hell, I haven't even read all of this book. I've read to chapter 10 and a half.
Are you going to finish the book even after we finish
Of
this episode?
course.
Cool. You got to, man. It's all about completeness and consistency. We first hear about Ciro's kindness, I believe, anywhere. They
Yes.
haven't mentioned Ciro's kindness yet in the series, right?
Not before that, not directly, not by name.
Okay.
Axe has alluded to it
Probably in
couple of
Megamorphs.
times. Yeah, he did once or twice in Megamorphs, and then he did like through somebody else's perspective whenever they first, I think it was either through Cassie's perspective or Marco's, where he basically hints to, I'm not supposed to tell you anything.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of his thing. But it's Ciro's kindness, which is first mentioned in the series on 31, and that comes into huge play later on in the series as well. Do you want to hear the Andalite prayer, or the, as he says it, I think he says
The morning ritual?
The morning ritual. Here it goes. So, from the water that gave birth to us, from the grass that feeds us, for the freedom that unites us, we rise to the stars. Freedom is my only cause. Duty to the people, my only guide. Obedience to my prince, my only glory. The destruction of my enemies, my most solemn vow. I, Aximili Esgarouth Isthel, Andalite warrior cadet, offer my life. They take it seriously, huh? Andalites are like
Definitely.
seriously in like a warrior mind frame from the time they're born. Do you think there's Andalites that are not warriors? Andalites that are just like truck drivers or, like blue collar, literally blue collar, like Andalites? Or are they all like, I must fight for my prince to defend our species?
Yeah, it sounds like they probably do have, which is why I thought it was funny that even Axe was kind of confused by the ant. Mine is they do seem to like have a very ant societal structure from what we've just been told. But yeah, they haven't directly referenced non-warrior Andalites yet.
Yeah.
They've only really talked about, because that's the world that he's in, and that's the only other Andalite perspective we get right now.
Yeah.
And it was the same with Elfangor. Even though we find out later on that he does more stuff with his life than just warrior Andalite heroism.
Yeah.
That's the world that he was brought up in, and that's the world that he returns to, and so it's
kind of, he carries it with him.
Exactly.
It's cool that he's loyal enough to his warriorism that he still does this ritual even though he's light years away from his home.
Mm-hmm.
We were on page 50. We get in some good comic fare where Axe is in school and Prince Jake says, take that desk. And Axe is like, take it where? Where? I mean, sit in it. And then it cuts quickly to the fallout from the Animorphs destroying the Kendrona Ray, because one of their teachers, Mr. Pardue, falls onto the floor, starts clawing at his head, saying, Yerk, get out of me, because the Yerks are dying, right? It says he clawed at his head till blood began to flow. Yeah. And then what does Jake do? Of course, Jake, being a hero, jumps up, rushes to the teacher's side, and actually talks to him.
Yeah.
And what does he say to Mr. Pardue?
Totally, in my opinion, messes up big time.
Yeah.
Risks.
Not very smart.
Risks quite a bit. He's very, very lucky that their automatic protocol is to immediately, on the spot, kill them. Yeah.
Which
as discreetly as possible.
With like a cattle prod type thing.
It sounds almost like he gets a... like he's being injected. They got a micro syringe that they're just pressing up to his neck and injecting him with a lethal dose of whatever.
Or like an electric shock.
Who knows?
Or maybe it's something that makes it appear as if it was an aneurysm.
That's what I wonder. Max
wonders
what exactly that device does to eliminate that human being or whatever creature it is that it's pressed up against.
I think this may be the only time we see that device being used in the series. I think, because I don't remember it happening.
We talked about Shorm at the beginning, kind of, right?
Yeah.
We just kind of went over that part.
Yeah, well, because at first Axe says, he explains what a shorm is, and then he says, Tobias and I can never be shorms.
Yeah.
I forget exactly why he said that.
Wall. Well, because he can't, because a shorm would have no secrets, would have nothing that he could hide from the other one, or would want to hide, and at this point he has to hide for the simple fact that they're different races, and the fact that his race is technologically less advanced than his own, and they recognize that and have laws against it.
Yeah,
I
as
think
we
it's
find
cool
out,
that they have the stereotypical thing that we all are told about. They have our television shows, our radio and news broadcasts.
Yeah, they study humans in school, and that's what they get. That's what they study is like the TV broadcast. That's and then Axe is like, I didn't really study. I didn't pay attention that much that day. Yeah, here we go. It says, I realized that Prince Jake, on page 60, I realized that Prince Jake and the humans could never be two shorms. There was a wall between me and them, but they were all I have. And he comes to appreciate that. So yeah, like as you said, they're killing every human controller whose Yerk dies, and that's kind of the main like plot line of this book. I did have a question. I wonder, and this is more of a wonder from the plot line. My day ended at the human school with the removal of the teacher who had been a controller, blah, blah, blah. I went back to the woods and gratefully resumed my true shape. So did he not morph the entire time he was at school? And if so, was he at school all day? And if so, did he morph like in the bathroom stall?
I got the impression that he pretty much immediately left, kind of like with the mall, as soon as he had the whole running around eating uncontrollably, jerked up by his accompaniment, and whisked out of the mall. Similarly, once he ran out there to talk to Jake and got turned on by Jake. He was done with school that day and had early dismissal, so to speak.
I guess that's what it is. He's like, done with. I like how he describes the students as like some of them were active and walking around, then others looked sad or sick.
God, yeah. And I love
funny.
the physical description he gives of the body's reaction to the school bell.
Yeah.
Like the bring, and you're just like, fuck.
They forgot to tell him about that. Yeah, because if you think about it, an Andalite's world, like I was thinking about this in the first scene of the book, the prologue, where they're talking about being on the ship, and there's all this dialogue going on, but there's no sound. So an Andalite's life must be very quiet, very serene.
Probably a lot more like similar to a deaf person as far as communication is concerned, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like deaf people probably communicate in the most similar thing to thought speech that we have.
I mean, they very clearly have ears. And he hasn't really talked too much about there being any real discernible difference in the quality of hearing. He said something minor other than the fact that the eyes are on the front of the face only, and he hates that he can't see around all the time with his stalk eyes. He also has noted that our human eyes are just slightly worse than his main eyes.
Of course, even if human eyes were better, he probably wouldn't admit it as a proud Andalite. I like the scene where Marco. I like the scene for a lot of reasons. When Marco takes Axe to his house, and because first of all, we get to see that Marco's father's doing a little bit better since book 5.
Yes,
where he was like just watching TV and eating all night and falling asleep in the living room, and now they got another house. They got a nice
he's back in the suburbs.
He's got his computer job,
like high tech. Yeah.
Then Axe comes in there, and it's so funny how
high tech for humans, apparently child's play.
He's like, he's
games.
Marco's dad is like doing the most advanced computer work that has been done in human life, and Axe is like, oh, this is a child's game, and once I understood the system, it was easy to spot the errors. I quickly rewrote it to make sense out of it. And he says, I win. I said to myself,
I win.
It's interesting. They have I win on page 65 in thought speech brackets, but he's really just thinking to himself.
Yeah.
And he's in human morph, so why would they have thought speech brackets?
Well, that's kind of like when you accidentally speak out loud your own thoughts. That's probably what he did. He probably was like thinking it and just kind of like accidentally spoke it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Max, you got all the answers, man. When you're not wondering, you got all the answers. Here's that word estreen, and here's the definition. A person with an ability to make morphing almost artistic. Axe says, on my planet is an art form. There are professional estreens who change shape in fantastic, beautiful ways. And those estreens on his home planet, as I remember from later in the series, small spoiler, they're able to just morph from one to another without having to go back to their regular form.
Yeah, I think he kind of alludes that here in his description anyway.
Yeah.
What page are you on, 68?
69. Nice, right?
Oh, I also preemptively, I love the discourse between Axe and Marco's dad. The yes, no, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes.
Because Marco's like, just say yes or no. Yeah, let's do that. You want to read that off on page 65?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? Do you want to be Marco's dad, or do you want to be Axe?
I'll be Marco's dad.
Okay, so start with I'm Marco's dad.
You can start with no.
No.
I'm Marco's dad. Are you a friend of his?
Yes.
What's your name?
No.
Your name is No?
Yes.
That's an unusual name, isn't it?
No.
It's not?
Yes.
Yes. It's not an unusual name?
No.
Now I'm totally confused.
Yes.
Hey, Marco! Marco! Did you, your friend is here, and your friend No is here?
No.
Yes, that's what I said.
Marco says, whoa, Dad, you met my friend?
No.
What?
I must be getting old. I don't understand you kids.
Yes, I offered. I offered. That's great.
We went to the bookstore.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So they go to the bookstore. Axe gets basically
little skit.
Yeah, that was a good skit, man. And scene.
Yes.
And Axe gets the human almanac, or the world almanac, where he starts to learn about humans. And I like this diary entry on chapter 9. Books are an amazing human invention. They allow instant access to information simply by turning pieces of paper. They are much faster to use than computers. Surprisingly, humans invented books before computers. They do many things backwards. Axe's little observations on on human life.
But it's because we tend to work backwards to forwards on a lot of things that we figure shit out so quickly, like how to go from flying to the moon in only 66 years.
And it's cool. That is kind of mind blowing if you think.
Whereas
about
it took y'all like 180, 200 years almost to go from flying to space travel. So what's up?
Obviously, yeah. What's up, Andalites? You're nothing compared to us humans.
With your 4 eyes and your 6 fingers. You're the true 4 eyes. 4 eyes.
4 eyes. And then on 78, it's described how, and I didn't remember this. It says, Axe says, every species fights wars. In the past, Andalites made war on other Andalites, and the Hork-Bajir used to have a biological time clock that set them all warring every 62 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, so it's like a Hork-Bajir purge.
Where did you say it says that?
It's on page 78.
78.
Yeah, 78,
Okay.
and it's like, Hork-Bajir have a biological time clock, so they would just go to war every 62 years, which is like the purge.
This is just after where I stopped reading. That's why I was like, where are you at?
So this is where you left off. I see. So let me catch you up on some highlights from what's coming up for you, Max. I liked it. Cassie comes into play, caring Cassie, the lovely Cassie, and she has Axe in Jake morph. So Axe morphs to Jake, and then comes to Cassie's
I love
house.
that he can still separate the each individual human, or he can combine them. And I wonder how many different combinations he can now come up with.
Well, he specifically acquired Jake when Jake got infested.
Oh, that's true.
So I don't think he's specifically acquired the others. I don't know. That's a good. I wonder. Can Axe morph into other humans? Like or the other Animorphs?
Either of the other
I don't know
three.
if he can or not. But so Cassie gets Axe into her home, and he comes in and he's like missing his parents and stuff like that. And now he's sitting there having this family meal. Cassie's dad made like the hottest chili because he used habanero peppers. And of course, Axe is just like shoving it into his face because he loves the, he loves the taste. Which like spice isn't a taste; it's a sensation. So I'm sure I don't know how he's like able to choke that down. Here's another question: when he morphs back to Andalite, does he feel the after effects of the chili in his hoof or wherever that process is done?
Right. That's what. Yeah, I want to know how he transfers all the nutrients and everything.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to know that. I'm kind of glad they left that part out. Let's keep the digestive process.
Maybe it's something similar to the energy consuming
Veleek. Scary thing. It's cool that Axe can point to his actual home star. Because Cassie's like, where are they? If you're allowed to tell me that. And he points. There's a lot of emotion going on here. Because, like, if you think about it, Axe is the equivalent of, 14, 15-year-old. And he's, like, away from his entire home planet, and he wasn't prepared to that. You got to wonder, though, why was Axe on the dome ship in the first place? Why was he there if he's not a warrior? Just because he's Elfinger's brother?
I think it had mostly to do with the fact that he was Elfinger's brother.
There's really nothing special about him, though. Like, I feel like Axe is just kind of a directionless teenager. So maybe that's why Elfinger kind of took him on, and he's like, all right, you're going to come see what the real world's like now. I don't know. But because I don't think he had any positive effect there. There's a really cool description of Axe and Tobias flying to the observatory on page 97. You'll have to read that later, man. It's like one of my favorite ones. It's just like K.A. took a break from the story to just describe flying. I turned into the breeze and opened my wings. I flapped several times and lifted my legs clear of the ground. The breeze caught me and I was off. And then it's like 3 paragraphs of just like the sun waves beating down, the heat waves rising, catching the thermals and just like shooting up, Yeah. And it's cool. It's cool that Tobias is telling Axe like, "Come on, man, it's a great day for flying." He's still having a good time being a bird. He still loves flying, and I love that about that.
It's kind of like what Axe said about fear. It's like you kind of have to feel the fear, you have to be afraid, but then you have to act afterwards.
Yeah. And then Axe, of course, they get to the observatory, and he's sitting here. I remember this book, dude. I remember vividly being at my childhood home, being outside, reading this book at this part on page 105, where Axe is like initiating his changes to the telescope so that he can phone home.
Yes.
You know, and like I remember being like, "Oh man, this is so cool." I wonder how many people saw this book first. How many kids saw this book first and then got it just because of the cover,
Right.
and then this was their first Animorphs book.
Let us know, all of you out
Yes.
there listening in Radio Land.
What was your first Animorphs
What
book?
was your
to you?
first Animorphs book? Why did it hook you?
On page 105, Axe hacks. Axe hacks the computer to talk to his homeworld.
Hack Axe.
Yeah, hack Axe. Axing is hacking.
Sounds like the Martians from Mars Attacks.
Ariths, we see that word. And yeah, it was exciting that he is able to talk to his home. He talks to 2 Andalites. Well, actually 3. The main guy he talks to is Lirum Aripoth Tarusis, who is head of the council, a serious guy. Axe says his appearance on the screen would have made me lose concentration, but I was too awed to dare. So the screen he hooks up, Max, this communication is all being controlled by
Thought speed.
or like by the mind.
Yeah.
It's like mind controlled.
I remember
you know?
that, yeah, because it's much like the hatch pod that he had Marco open as a gorilla in the Megamorphs. He had
Drop shaft.
It's just think open hatch,
Yeah.
and it'll happen.
Yeah. Or think, get in the drop shaft and think 12 or whatever, and it'll take you down 12.
Which is it's funny because it's kind of like the equivalent thing as what they actually do use in Star Trek to communicate to the computer. They actually just speak to the computer because that's the way we communicate. That's the way these humanoid life forms in Star Trek land communicate.
And Axe just
through
thinks.
speech. Yeah, and so it recognizes the speech, and I'm sure it would recognize Klingon, it would recognize Vulcan, it would recognize all the other different languages. So at least the ones that it's been programmed for and has had an opportunity to learn.
We see influence. I think Kay Applegate is a mixture of her influence is a mixture of, or I guess their influence is a mixture of Star Trek and like Lord of the Rings.
See, I always got the impression that most of the mythological type of stuff tended to come more so from Michael. But I'm also curious now. I also wonder about this book since the beginning pages. It said for Michael. Mm-hmm. If this was one of the books that he was omit from, if he was not actually part of the writing of this story, and that's why she had for Michael, and that's why so much of this has.
It's usually for Michael, right?
It's either like for. I think a lot of times it's also for Jake.
Right.
But a lot of the series they co-wrote together a lot of the aspects of it, and I remember reading in an interview that they took one time that he tended to do a lot more of that kind of science fiction based fantastic stuff that they do.
Okay.
He was more of that. He was more of the generator of that type of stuff.
And she's more like animal.
Yeah, she was more of the animal focus and the like
thinking of the plot,
interpersonal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the personal part. They make such a good mix, man. It's cool because their dynamics come out in the different dynamics of.
But
the
to
Animorphs.
reference specifically from the book, and I wonder,
Max wonders,
what is the actual range of thought speech, and why does it have a range? What's the physical limitation of it? What's causing it? Is thought speech sent out in a wave format, much like actual speech is, that it's just a wave that we as humans haven't figured out how to create?
Yeah. I know that, or I feel like walls and roofs and like barriers affect it. Because like when Tobias is outside the observatory, when Axe is talking to his home planet, he's not far away. I mean, he's right above the observatory, but they probably have like real thick walls,
Mm-hmm.
and so that prevents his thought speech coming in.
Right.
But you also got to wonder, like, because Visser 3 always projects his thought speech so everybody can hear.
Yeah,
so
he's
obviously
very loud.
Yeah, he's very loud, and you can direct it at people. But I don't know. I'm gonna say.
And yeah, are there people that can
I'm gonna say
project their
50
thought speech further than others? Like some people can be very boisterous all the time and constantly talk at a 7 volume out of 10 for a normal human being.
It's like you should do a whole podcast with that voice sometime. Welcome to the world's only Animorphs podcast.
Yes, the other communicator was Etheliran Halas Korain. Etheliran. Do the axe thing and just pronounce it all different types of ways.
Ron. So then in walks in walks this human controller named Eslin. Let's see what Eslin's full name is. Eslin 359. Like you mentioned a couple episodes ago, there's that numbering system.
Yes.
And we find out that the Yeerks refer to Elfangor as Beast Elfangor. And they call Visser 3 the Abomination.
The
Andalites call
yeah.
Visser 3 the Abomination.
Yeah.
So it's like they have nicknames for these.
They're like the respective queens of their chessboards.
Yeah. I'm ready to read the, I guess it's in the Andalite Chronicles, to see what the Yeerks think of Prince Ciro. Who, of course, Prince Ciro, as we find out in this book towards the end, Prince Ciro is the Andalite who gave... Do you remember this, Max?
Yes,
okay,
he
so
is the Andalite that gave the Yeerks the ability to travel.
Yes. And so that's what got them off of their planet. And so I wonder what the... I'm curious to read... I'm curious to read what the Yeerks think of Ciro, because he should be their hero, you know?
Right.
It's like the Yeerks must be inherently evil, and I guess that's exactly what it is, because they're, they get this huge privilege and then they just destroy it by invading people.
That also reminds me of a part that I did end up reading, was where Axe was talking about how the Yeerks feared humans.
Yeah.
And Cassie didn't understand why, I think. And he was saying because of how quickly y'all advance when you do start advancing.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are jumping ahead so much quicker than any other species that they know that within another century or so, they won't stand a chance against you, no matter what they've got enslaved.
So the Yeerks are afraid. And then we move on to around page 128, the Animorphs are fed up with Axe. They're like, dude, you can't be just giving us secrets all the time. And so here comes Axe, and he's got this big plan that he comes from Eslin, because Visser 3 killed Eslin's love. So there you go. Yeerks have love. Yeerks are able to feel love in some way.
They're capable of emotion.
Capable of emotion. And so Axe
Even though they don't normally subscribe to them.
Yeah, yeah. So Axe goes on this secret mission, which he supposes is secret, to go kill Visser 3, to avenge his brother. And then this whole last part, I'm going to need your feedback on this, maybe next episode, Max, but basically Axe morphs to rattlesnake morph, right? And
I remember him acquiring
the
rattlesnake.
Yeah,
and I do remember there being a whole scene. He ends up biting Visser 3, doesn't he?
Visser 3's feeding. He's running and feeding, and Axe bites Visser 3. Visser 3 falls over in the meadow. And then the other Animorphs
crawls out of him, doesn't
it? The Yeerk crawls. Yeah, did you remember that from childhood?
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't remember it. I thought it was going to go... See, I thought that... earlier on, there's a scene where Marco touches Axe in the field while they're just talking. And in my mind, I was like, okay, so Marco morphs into Axe so that Axe thinks, in Rattlesnake Morph, that Marco is actually Visser 3. I thought that's where it went, that they were like kind of putting on a mirage for Axe. But no, he actually bites Visser 3. The Yeerk actually crawls out of Visser 3's head, and then we actually get to find out what that Yeerk's name is, or the Andalite's name is. Alaron Simitor Koras. I was once a war prince. Someday, if you survive, I have a wife, I have 2 children. Tell them I still have hope. I still have love for them. And he's being affected by the snake venom and everything. But here's my thing, dude. Why didn't Axe kill that Andalite to put an end to Visser 3? That should have been done, because he doesn't. He lets him go. And the guy's saying, kill me, please kill me. And then Axe just lets him go. And they never really explain it. It just says, I set his hand down by his side. I knew the next time I saw his face, it would once more be the face of my enemy, the Abomination, Visser 3. It's like, you should have killed him, dude. You should have killed him.
He goes into the water. Tobias knows that he slithered into the water.
Yeah, and he lost track of
water.
him. Yeah. Tobias couldn't grab him because he lost track of him. And apparently, Visser 3 already had like a backup thing set up. So, like, yeah, if you don't hear us check in from one of the wait, is the blade ship the main one? Bug fighter. If you don't hear us check in from one of the bug fighters, then come rescue us and come look for us. And I'm sure he has some way to communicate as a Yeerk or something like that. But I took umbrage with that. I don't like that Axe didn't kill Visser 3's Andalite body when he could have. But I guess that's an Andalite thing, you know?
It's a very common mistake that heroes tend to make. They tend to, at what seems like the absolute worst moment possible, take pity on people that... In this case, it's understandable why, because he's no longer currently a controller.
Yeah.
It's just the Andalite to Andalite interaction, and he can't bring himself to kill one of his own kind.
He should have cut off his tail or something like that.
Well, as we may have discovered in Megamorphs, I don't think that would have mattered. He could have cut off his tail, and Visitor 3 would have had to just morph and then morph back. Because we did see a little glimpse that Rachel, during her amnesia spell, had been running through the forest barefoot.
Yeah.
Had scrapes and scars all over her feet from that. Morphed into, I think, the elephant that time. And when she morphed back, all the scrapes and everything were gone from her feet. So I think we found out that in actuality it does work both ways.
Okay.
You can morph in and out of any kind of damage
to avoid the damage. All right. He should have killed him though. Right?
And I think I think we also find out later why Elfangor didn't.
I see. So much to find out.
Yeah.
So much to find out. And things are really getting ramped up here. This book ends with Axe calling back to the home planet and passing on the word of Visser 3's Andalite, to his family, and then also kind of clarifying to Prince Lirum that these humans are my people now, and sir, with all due respect to the law and you, I won't let the humans be destroyed as a Hork-Bajir were destroyed, not while I live. And of course, Lirum made Axe say that he's the one who gave the
Morphing
humans some
technology?
morphing powers, but it was actually Elfangor, but Axe took the hit for that. So that's where we're at. Axe ends up explaining everything to the Animorphs. He talks about the law of Sira's kindness. He tells them how he eats, which is through his hoof, and that's a big mystery to them. And so we end this book, this fun romp of a kind of a break from the life or death action, with Axe coming forth and just being on good terms again. So now Animorphs are full of strength. They're rested up. They're on good terms with each other. And then we move on to book 9, man.
Yeah.
What is book 9? Who narrates that? Let's see.
Book 9. Well, if it's after after Axe, then it's going to be Cassie.
Cassie, nice. I'm ready for another Tobias
I
book.
think she's
because Tobias is 13
on the front.
Okay.
Book 9.
Yeah, book 9, Animorphs, The Secrets. Yeah, there you go. Cassie in Indian style, morphing to the wolf. I'm ready for book 13, and we'll find out why when we get there. But that's always kind of been one of my favorite ones. I think that so far this is one of my favorites just because it's different. It's got a little different flavor. Max, any last thoughts on book 8? Or no? Or we covered it all? What do you got?
I like that they kind of had to break from the normal build. They didn't have the exact reconnaissance mission like normal. Yep. Other than I guess maybe you could call that Axe's human morph this time.
Yeah, there was an,
but there wasn't. There wasn't like a newly acquired morph specifically for that task.
Right.
He had already had the human morph. He was already doing that kind of thing anyway.
They got the rattlesnake, but it was just kind of for fun because it almost bit him.
Yeah, he just like Visor 3 had admired the tiger. Yeah. He admired the rattlesnake for being so fast that it was like his tail.
And I remember in that scene, Tobias was like, "Wait, why did you do that? You want to morph a snake?" It's like, why is he giving him shit for that? They should be acquiring as many morphs as they possibly can.
They should. They should be going through. I mean, obviously, Tobias maybe can understand because he probably hates rattlesnakes.
Right. Very cool. It's the world's only Animorphs podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for book 8. As always, remember to follow Only Annie Pod on Instagram and follow or subscribe to our YouTube page, the world's only Animorphs podcast. Now, what do we say at the end?
I think we've been doing some version of "Until next time, we'll fight," but we've usually been using something from the book itself.
Oh, it's together.
Together we'll fight. Yeah, it changed a few books ago.
Together
we
fight. We'll see you guys next week.